Okay, so the foxes finally have what they came for. They have got the chickens ready to take home to eat because their family are really hungry, aren't they? So therefore, Mr. Fox is probably going to want to leave the tunnel rather quickly, isn't he? Because he knows that at any moment the farmers could return to the chicken house and they would be in trouble, wouldn't they? Because the farmers are trying to catch the foxes. So he tells his children, no fooling around. Now, what might the small foxes be doing that means they are fooling around? Well, fool around is a verb and it means to behave in a silly way, especially in a way that might have dangerous results. So, if the small foxes are being silly, if they're fooling around, then the farmers could return to the chicken house and they could be caught, okay? So he doesn't want them to fool around. He wants to get home, to eat the chickens, and to get out of danger. So some synonyms for the verb fool around are mess about and be silly. Now, in this context, we have used the word fool around to describe how Mr. Fox doesn't want the small foxes to behave because he doesn't want them to be caught. But we can use the verb fool around in other ways. So, for example, don't fool around with matches, because when people use matches, it can be very dangerous, okay? So therefore, you need to be very, very sensible when you're using matches, and you shouldn't mess about, you shouldn't be silly, and you shouldn't fool around, okay? Because it can be very dangerous. Okay, so let's carry on reading. One after one, they climbed down through the hole in the floor, and soon they were all standing once again in the dark tunnel. Mr. Fox reached up and pulled the floorboards back into place. He did this with great care. He did it so that no one could tell they had ever been moved. My son, he said, giving the 3 plump hens to the biggest of his 4 small children, run back with these to your mother. Tell her to prepare a feast. Tell her the rest of us will be along in a jiffy, as soon as we have made a few other little arrangements. So he is giving the hens to his eldest child, and he is telling him to go back to his mother and give her the hens to prepare a feast. Okay, now when Mr. Fox was choosing which chickens he wanted, do you think he would have picked the hens that were really, really thin, that had no meat on them? Or no, he probably wouldn't have, would he? Because he knows his family are really, really hungry. They've gone many days without any food. So therefore, he's going to pick the nice, juicy hens, isn't he? He's going to pick the hens with lots and lots of meat on them. So therefore, yes, plump, which is an adjective, it's describing the hens that he gives to his son, means to have a pleasantly soft, rounded body or shape. Okay, so have lots of meat on them, on the hens, and to be very soft and juicy, okay? Now, a synonym for plump is chubby. So we could describe the hens as well as chubby. If they have lots of meat on them and they are nice and juicy, they are chubby. Now, in this context, we have used plump to describe the hens, but we can also use plump to describe other things. For example, a baby's cheeks. So some babies, when they're born, have very, very chubby cheeks, don't they? So we can say that the baby has a plump, rosy cheek, okay? So it's got nice, soft, round cheeks, okay? And they're quite plump. They've got lots of meat on them. Okay, so there we go. That is what plump means. Now here we have got to the end of chapter 10. So now let's have a look at some vocabulary. So here is our first question. It says, find and copy a verb that suggests it was difficult to climb out of the tunnel. So before we start answering this question, let's have a look at the key words. So our first key word here is copy, because when we are looking for this word and we find it in the text, we need to copy it exactly into our answer. So we're not going to change it in any way. We're going to take it out of the text and put it into our answer without changing it at all. Now, the next key word is verb. So we're not looking for an adjective. We're not looking for a noun. We are looking for a verb. And we know what a verb is, don't we, Leah, too? Yes, a verb is an action word. It's a doing word. So that's what we're looking for. And we're going to copy this straight into our answer. Now, what type of verb are we going to be looking for? Well, we are looking for a verb that suggests it is difficult. Okay, we're not finding a verb that's suggesting it's easy to do what they're doing. We are finding a verb that suggests it is difficult. And we are finding a verb that suggests it was difficult to climb. Okay, so now we know our keywords: copy, verb, difficult and climb. Let's read the part where the foxes find the hole in the tunnel and they climb through it. I've done it, he yelled. I've done it first time. I've done it. I've done it. He pulled himself up through the gap in the floor and started prancing and dancing with joy. So there we go. So Mr. Fox here has climbed through the tunnel, and it says he pulled himself up through the gap in the floor. Now, is there anything in this sentence that explains that Mr. Fox found it quite difficult to do this? Well, no, it doesn't, does it? Because it says he pulled himself up, so it actually makes it sound quite easy. So therefore, we are not going to find the verb that suggests it's difficult to climb in this sentence. So let's carry on reading. Maybe the small foxes found it hard to climb out of the tunnel. Come on up, he sang out. Come up and see where you are, my darlings. What a sight for a hungry fox. Hallelujah, hooray, hooray. The 4 small foxes scrambled up out of the tunnel, and what a fantastic sight it was that now met their eyes. So here it tells us the 4 small foxes scrambled up out of the tunnel. Now we've looked at the word scramble before, haven't we? Remember in Pumpkin Soup when the character was climbing down the rope over the cliff, it says he was scrambling down the rope, and he found that quite difficult. And yes, look here, the 4 foxes scrambled up out of the tunnel. Now, what does the word scramble, what does the verb scramble mean? Well, scramble up means to move or climb quickly, but with difficulty, okay? So to find it quite hard. So therefore, yes, this does suggest it was difficult to climb out the tunnel. And yes, it is a verb, isn't it? It's a doing word. Somebody scrambles up, that's what they do. So therefore, we can copy scrambled up into our answer for our question for the verb that suggests it was difficult to climb out of the tunnel. Okay, so let's have a look at the next question. So I've highlighted the key words in this question. They were in a huge shed and the whole place was teeming with chickens. This means that tick 1. Okay, so the first keywords, well, the first set of keywords was teeming with chickens. Now we looked at the word teeming earlier, teeming with, didn't we? And it described the shed when they first arrived. It described the chicken house, Boggis's chicken house, number 1. So we are specifically looking at that phrase, was teeming with chickens. And then the next part of the question says, this means that, ... Okay, so we are going to be looking at what teeming with chickens means. We already know that because we looked at it earlier, don't we? So we are looking almost for a definition of what teeming means in this context. And then it says tick 1. Okay, Yetu, if I say tick 1, am I going to tick all 3? No, I'm not, am I? So therefore, I only need to put 1 tick in 1 box. Now, is it going to be there were some chickens, or there were no chickens, or is it going to be the shed was full of chickens? Okay, so think back to when we learned about this word earlier on in the lesson. Can you tick the correct definition in this context for teeming with chickens? Okay, so I would like you now to have a go at this question. When you finish this question, you have more questions on your resource, Year 2 Reading, 25th of February, Resource 2. Okay, so when you finish this question, you can have a go at those questions. And don't forget to go back to question 1 and fill that out because we did that one together. Okay, well, have a lovely rest of your day, Year 2, and I'll see you in our next reading lesson. Bye.